Hello, BookTube, and welcome to your Daily Penguin. This is our tour through my Penguin Classic wall, book by book, period by period, author by author. No glimpse of my little Frida today. She is over on her bed. Uh, I put a blanket on the floor down there just because I thought she'd occasionally want a spot other than right next to me, other than on this bed or on the couch. And then I found a box of blankets just in another room, and figured, why bother? Why have blankets in boxes? So I put the blankets through the wash, and then decided to use them. So I folded them up into meter by meter, just a square, and I put them at the foot of the bed, on the floor at the foot of the bed. And then I draped the little blanket that Frida had been using on top of that. And once she realized draping the blanket on top of it was to convince her that it was new, that it wasn't new, that it was something she was familiar with, so that I wouldn't have a 5-act Puccini opera about, what's this? How dare you? And it worked. And when she crawled onto that blanket and realized that instead of just a covering over a wood floor, it was now a bottomlessly soft cloud of heaven. She enjoys it quite a bit, and she when we came in here just a few minutes ago, she marched right over there and just went to sleep. So I'm not going to bother her for an appearance. She'll be in plenty of videos, and also on Instagram. I don't know how many of you are on Instagram or follow me on Instagram, but I spend a lot of time with Frida, and so she ends up on my Instagram quite a bit. So we're just gonna charge ahead to the books themselves. I'm assuming that some of you at least are interested in the penguins rather than in a glimpse of my little dog. And our penguins for today are mass market paperbacks. I haven't got rid of all my penguin mass market paperbacks by any measure, and these are a mass market paperback set that I really like. It's the collected poems of William Wordsworth in 2 fat volumes that are edited by John Hayden, and that have this as the back cover copy. Fascinatingly assertive back cover copy. To read the collected poems of Wordsworth is to defeat the myth of the divided man, the revolutionary youth whose ardent idealism gave way to the tired rhetoric of the Tory placeholder. That's fantastic stuff, and it's just starting. Wordsworth's life works are a coherent whole, the parts of which are a single and organic opus of autobiographical confession depicting the growth of the poet's sensibility. And that is what this editor attempts to, that's the line that he used in these 2 big volumes. They just go chronologically through Wordsworth's output, except for the prelude. No version of the prelude is in here. And this 2-volume edition is reprinted from the sort of reworked, coherent life's work poetry editions that Wordsworth did himself. So those are going to be, that's a couple of cautions. Certainly the number of scholars who have said over the years that Wordsworth's life is a portrait of a divided man can't all be wrong, and they can't all be speaking from no evidence whatsoever. That's a critical assertion on the editor's part here. Fascinating one. But you're going to be aided in making that assertion if you use the authorized editions of these poems that Wordsworth smoothed over and shaped himself specifically to reinforce that idea. It's going to be a note of caution because quite a few Wordsworth fans will want to read the original editions of the poems. And there's a long argument to be made, right? For and against that. An argument that I've had many, many times before in many different contexts, as a student and as a teacher. Do we want the Henry James New York editions of his novels where he gives long sententious prefaces to each one of them to tell you how to read them and how he thought of them? Do we want poets going back and excising their work, revamping it, smoothing it down, maybe making it a little bit more narratively through, as Wordsworth does? Do we want that? Of course you want everything that you can get from the pen of Wordsworth, but if you're studying his poetry, do you want to read the volumes, the original poems as they came out, the lyrical ballads and all that? Do you want to read them hot from the pen? Or in this kind of an edition, where everything is more considered, where everything is the benefit of hindsight? I don't I'm not saying there is a right or wrong answer. I think these volumes are fascinating. Never quite found them in trade paperback, but I love them. I love the critical apparatus. I love the feeling of every once in a great while. I'm not Wordsworth's biggest fan. I'm not his biggest fan. I recognize his literary worth, but he's one of those great canonical poets where I would much rather read about his life than read his poetry. But I like his poetry, and every once in a while I will just go through these volumes, because that's clearly the way they're meant to be read, is in order, just from start to finish, as, like that back copy says, the organic portrait of a whole life. I myself am not 100% sure that Wordsworth wrote his poems that way. I don't think anybody writes that way. But it's a fascinating project, and I find this fascinating. I have 2 other collections of Wordsworth, but they're not complete. They're not like this. This has everything. And they're not Penguins either, so they're not here. The only other Penguin Wordsworth that I have, I believe, is the original edition of the Prelude, somewhere in a trade paperback, which we will come across because this Penguin wall is not organized. It is going to be organized when I'm done with it. Come hell or high water, it's going to be organized to a fine point when I'm done with it. But for now, there is other Wordsworth. There might be Wordsworth might appear in anthologies as well, romantic anthologies. But I think I have. I might have the lyrical ballads alone, and I'm pretty sure that I have at least one version of the Prelude in a trade paperback that we'll come across. But but this is it. This is the whole of the stuff. This is the whole of Wordsworth's works, and I find it fascinating. And that is your Penguin Classic for today. It's a little bit tough to know how to shape it in terms of a recommendation, because despite the fact that I've been spending a lot of time with William Shakespeare this last week and a lot of time with W.H. Auden, no poet wrote only good poetry. Okay, no poet's complete collected poems is going to be genius. They're all going to have peaks and valleys. So I'm not 100% sure in terms of a Penguin recommendation. I'm not 100% sure. In fact, I am 100% sure that this is probably not the way you should go unless you are already a Wordsworth fanatic. If you're a Wordsworth fanatic, you should probably have this 2-volume set. But if you're not and you just want to know whether or not you would like him, a selected poems will do just fine. A selected poems will do just fine, especially if you can find one with a nice, meaty introduction and lots of notes that put everything in context. There are plenty of those. There have been literally hundreds in the last 200 years. So that's your Penguin Classic for today. It's a great 2-volume set, but I'm not sure that it's a recommendation for anybody except Penguin Classic completists and Wordsworth fans. So it's 2 volumes, 2 big volumes of poetry, and who knows what we'll encounter tomorrow. Will it be more poetry? Have we hit a vein of romantic poetry at long last? You'll find out when I do. I'm deliberately not looking too far ahead, so I'm going to wrap this up for now, and we'll do a Penguin Classic tomorrow. Thank you, BookTube.